bit of a lump, but we're almost through to lunch, just a bit more to go. So now we'd like to explore how universities can evolve their offerings and make new partnerships to meet these changing demands. Please welcome our moderator of the next session, Laura Lightbinch, who's the Strategic Content Manager at QS, as well as the panelists. Laura, please. A round of applause, everyone. Thank you. Just a little bit of context. So throughout this year's EduData Summit, we've had a consistent underlying message that we're at a transformation point in the global higher education sector. We're navigating a landscape defined by rapid change, rising uncertainty, and forces reshaping education from the outside in. Whether we actively embrace it or not, change is underway. We've got traditional models being reshaped by alternative formats. We've got bite-sized online learning, and new emerging institutions coming forward ready to change the game. In terms of technological disruption in the form of generative AI and personalized content, the learning experience is really being elevated within the sector and outside of it as well. As we've heard a lot across the last year and a half, industry demands are evolving rapidly with a new focus on skills, flexibility, and lifelong learning. And of course, we have geopolitical, economic, and social change that's reframing student mobility and international collaboration. So as a sector, we must adapt and innovate to remain relevant. And universities face a fundamental question: what is our role in the new world? How do we redefine purpose and amplify our impact? And what will it mean to be a university in 2030, just 5 years' time from now? So with that, I'm excited to introduce my panelists for this session. We have Rusydi, co-founder and CEO at Reactor School, Tsiuk Tan, co-author of AI for Humanity and founder and CEO of Open Story, Professor Dr. Elshin Babayev, rector at Baku State University, and Professor Alex Farsi, co-founder and CEO of Somin.ai. So welcome all, and let's dive in. So first of all, please introduce yourselves, and I wondered if you can talk for just a minute or two on what do you see as the biggest forces reshaping education, learning, and the roles of universities today? Would you like to begin?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rusydi. I'm one of the co-founders of Reactor School. We work with high schools and universities to build incubators and accelerators on campus, as well as engage their alumni. Well, one of the areas that I focus on is in the sphere of entrepreneurship education. A lot of universities are now trying to figure out how to increase the rate of technology transfer, commercialization, as well as increasing the birth rate of student-led startups on campus. It's a great way to create employability. But the whole point here is that not every student should be an entrepreneur, but every student should be entrepreneurial. And I think that's what a lot of universities are trying to accomplish.
Hi, I'm Tsiuk, and I am a filmmaker, innovator, entrepreneur. I co-authored a book called AI for Humanity, but I always joke that with an AI scientist and AI governance expert, but I always joke that I represent the humanity part of the book title. So I see myself very much as a humanist in an era of rapidly evolving technology. And I think in terms of the forces driving the future of university, I feel that obviously we always talk about AI and technology, but I also think that there is a larger force which is actually demographics. The whole idea that we are all going to live for much longer than we ever bargained for. And therefore I think universities will play a role as So that's probably my take on it.
Thank you very much. I'm coming from Baku State University, the biggest and oldest university of Azerbaijan. So, from the very beginning, I would like to thank organizers for giving a chance to represent our university here. And I'd like to thank us on behalf of Azerbaijani delegation. So, we have our mission, we have our strategy of development by 2030, and this strategy is based on 5 pillars, and that's why it's called University 5.0. So the first one, of course, is education, and second one is science, then innovation and digitalization, sociality, and internationalization. So we have 5 pillars, and that's why we are focused on these directions. Of course, the priorities are changing because the world is changing, but of course we are keeping the classical approach, taking into account the realities of the world. Of course, our aim is to be a leader in the country, in the region, and globally engaged university. Because we are shaping leaders, we are shaping researchers and specialists who will build tomorrow, and tomorrow they will make decisions, and these decisions must be right decisions here. Of course, I can tell a lot, but it depends on your questions, and thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Fassi?
Hi, I'm actually a weird guy in that way, because I'm a university professor, I teach computer science and AI, but at the same time, I'm running a startup in AI and marketing. And also at the same time, I'm teaching business courses in India and other places, because business side of things that excites me the most. If you look at my past, I was a programmer first, and I did my PhD in NUS here in Singapore, computer science. Then there was so many opportunities I could tackle there, so I started the company. So eventually I ended up being everything, including sales, yet teaching in university quite technical courses. So to me, the future, and also one of the key challenges, is how do I replicate my past across many of those talented students that I teach? How do we encourage them to apply their AI skills into business? How to make them entrepreneurs? But if you see their underlying cause of this, I think it's a flexibility and personalization. I was taking a lot of courses that I felt I need for my business in the future. So now think, if we could get every university hyper-personalized what the students learn and what they actually can choose to learn, those micro courses, etc. That would be amazing. Last time we couldn't do it because university is a big organization, but now we have artificial intelligence. So every single student can get their personalized tutor, for example. They can be monitored during the class. We can measure their engagement rates. We can tailor the program for them specifically based on how they can get the materials. And I think this is an amazing opportunity. To me, education and LLMs is probably the most low-hanging fruit application, and I really believe in it.
Thank you, Dr. Fassi. Okay, so looking forward and considering, the rapid evolution of life today and the role that tech is playing in the speed of change, what do you think a future-ready university needs to consider to remain relevant and impactful in 2030? Dr. Babayev, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more as a university representative as well.
I'm the only representative of higher education system, so that's why I should have much more, I think, time maybe. But so from the point of view of our university, so we are a classical university, but now we are transforming into the research university, because having a huge experience only within the last years we could reach a huge index at 18. So it means that we have to do a lot. So concerning the data, so the data creation is indeed a hell work, because if you want to have a reliable and trustable and dynamic data, you have to work a lot. But having the data, handling this data, and not using this data data is shared. And after the processing of data, so we get results, and these results are very dangerous because somebody can manipulate with these data results. That's why we think that we have to use different available data. For example, it could be our own data. We are also handling the data from state examination center. We are handling data from audit. We are handling the data from QS and from different sources. And then we try to apply these results in our activity. So, of course, I can tell also about the SWOT analysis and how we create ecosystem, because if you use data for different independent but at the same time dependent directions like education, science, sociality, so all together will create an ecosystem for university. Of course, integration and internalization is the most important question, and close ties with industry and business. For example, we speak a lot how to improve the AI-driven university. What we do, we are not against online open system of education or boot camps. But what we have done, we have invited a very reliable company to come to university, and we started to create our own learning management system. It was like as a pilot project. So we didn't pay to each other. So, but we are creating this system to go together in order to show and to take into account the peculiarities of country. Because Azerbaijan is a gate between East and West. But we have to take into account the characteristics of our education system. So we cannot just bring and apply the digital system in our education and research activities. We have to adapt, but we have to take into account the trends in the region and in the whole world.
Fantastic, thank you. I'd like to open that question up to everybody else as well. So, what do you think a future-ready university needs to consider in 2030? Rusydi?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I'll break this down into 3 parts, right? The first part is, can the university train the student for multiple career pathways? Right, so the career pathway of the future is no longer going to be linear. I think a lot of times you're going to see a lot of students either changing industry or changing function. And the key thing you want here is, can you get the student to be comfortable with uncertainty? And therefore, build themselves and build a portfolio that showcases that transferable skill. Right? The second thing here is that how do I shorten the learn to earn cycle? A lot of students go to universities with the intent of, okay, what is the financial return on investment in terms of a career? Right? Are there alternate pathways for me to get to where I want to be? Right, as compared to, say, taking a typical 4-degree pathway. Right, so you have things, for example, like apprenticeships, you have things like alternate universities that run sprints, for example, rather than the typical semester. So Harvard-Space, for example, runs modules in 3-week sprints. You finish 15 sprints, you graduate with a degree from Harvard-Space. Very different way of teaching because you focus on one particular module, and that's basically modeled after software engineering, where you run sprints into weeks. The other thing that we're noticing is that a lot of students now are stacking internships, right? They are collecting internship certificates like Pokemon cards, you know? And the reason why is because more and more employers are looking at demonstration of skills over and on top of accreditation. So if you can produce these sorts of demonstration in your internships, it helps. So when I speak to some of the students, for example, they would at the bottom of the resume state that I know how to use PowerPoint, I know how to use so on and so forth. Those are hygiene level skills, right? Now, more and more students with this, I know how to use Power BI, I produce presentations using Canva, and this is the link to my portfolio, which they put online. And I think that's a rich amount of data that universities can use to inform how they want to design the courses of the future.
I think I've had the good fortune of having attended 2 very illustrious universities. one in the US, and I'm currently doing a master's in AI ethics at Cambridge. And I think when we talk about the future of the university, I think it's a mistake to think that it's just all about technology and data and becoming completely different. I think in my experience, we should think about what make universities worth going to. And I think to me, it's actually a shared ethos, right? The whole idea that you are lifelong practitioners of knowledge and wisdom, and you have a shared ethos. And I think that the data and the technology should empower that. That's my sense of it. For example, the degree that I'm doing in Cambridge, I could do it completely online without going to university. I could just like watch videos on YouTube or TED Talks or something like that. And but what's very interesting is that the university was able to curate a very interesting cohort of practitioners in AI ethics. And therefore, it's the connection with my cohort mates and how we are drawing industry experience that it was very inspiring. And the fact that we are on this shared journey of promoting AI for humanity probably for the rest of our lives. And we will be part of this tribe of shared meaning, I think. And I think if you think about the future of universities, how do we make that community and shared ethos more dynamic and powerful through data? For example, can we use AI not as a tutor, but as a community builder? Can we mix and match alumni across that have shared interests in a particular industry practice? I think we need to think that I've had very classical in practical education. I majored in comparative literature as an undergrad, but I've just been informed that I'm now especially hot and relevant because I'm a creative technologist. And then I also have people come up to me and say, should my children major in computer science because junior developers are being replaced by AI? So I think it's not really just focusing on what's practical, but actually having this kind of North Star of what it means to be a globally curious, educated person in the age of technology.
Thank you. And we'll come on to that in a second a little bit more, Tio. Dr. Babayev, I just want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything you'd like to add there?
I just picked up the word curious because to me, the word curious quite tightly related to the adoption of large language models by the students. Sometimes it makes them less curious. And this is particularly what I was working on and discussing with NIE here, National Institute of Education under NTU. It's a very thin border between learning by using large language models, AI, and getting job done by them without really the learning outcomes for you is actually worse learning outcomes as compared to. And I think the flip side of the coin is that universities, they don't want to discourage, in fact they cannot stop the usage of AI by the students. So definitely they want to.
You can always try.
Yeah, well, they were trying for a year, I guess, and then they kind of given up on it. So you cannot stop that, right? In fact, employees also want to use AI, and you cannot stop that by themselves. And so how do you make them be responsible for using it in such a way that actually empowers them and helps them, but not making them more lazy? I think this is a fundamental big thing that universities have to address, not even 2030, but maybe 2025, 24, like in a past already. So I think how do we find a balance between getting students adopting it by themselves and doing the assignments, but in such a way that it actually helps them, coaches them, rather than replacing their work. I think this is a big challenge. There should be many frameworks developed along that. Because we cannot forbid, and we don't want to. That's my take.
Thank you so much. So this morning in Dr. Paul Thurman's opening remarks, he said, if yesterday is about data and what we do with it, today is about storytelling and the humanity element of that, right? And so you just started to talk about that, and I really wanted to get into that a little bit more. And it's been a recurring topic that what is the distinctly human advantage that universities should be cultivating, And if we are to remain spaces for identity building and community, how can we better foster that belonging, purpose, and tribe-like engagement, as you say, in this AI-enabled world?
I think that for me as a storyteller, storytelling is a way of making meaning. And I think that when we often expect too much of AI, like one-click automation, magic, do everything for us. But we ask too little of ourselves as human guardians, developers, creators of the AI systems. So I think in terms of the university, in my book we have this idea of human HASI, or human AI symbiotic intelligence. So the whole idea is that intelligence is a complex cluster concept. It's not any one thing, and that it's going to always evolve in tandem with machine intelligence, right? So what we consider an intelligent person is going to evolve with time. And I think one of the important roles for university is to be cognizant of the evolving human intelligence and the definition of it. And also, I think, cultivate people who can connect worlds. And by that, I don't mean like networking or anything like that, but connecting the offline world with the world online, the world of data, connecting among people, things like that, connecting among disparate AI systems and technologies. I think the ability to do that and do that in a way that make meaning, not just for your personal future, but for humanity, for your community, will be very important. And that's also a storytelling function. I just want to share an example. Recently, I gave a talk to a group of Beijing University alumni. And one of them is a therapist or social worker. And the Chinese have been very successful in using DeepSeek in training therapists, counselors. But what's very interesting is that there's one thing that large language models don't do well. Understand silence. So if you prompt the large language models, like, breathing or morning, it'll give you this long, comprehensive, 360-degree advice, but it doesn't know when to shut up. It doesn't know when not to talk, because it assumes that everything is text, when a lot of being human is also about being the subtext, and being able to respond to the subtext, to being able to respond to the undercurrents, what's not spoken, implicit, and in an empathetic way. So I think that to me is a glimpse of what universities should help us do, which is really cultivate the ability to connect disparate worlds, both human and AI, and among ourselves as well, to make meaning and tell a shared story of why we deserve to go on as a species.
There's the silence in the audience right now. I'm assuming that's happening.
I assume that it's actually this like palpable passion and connection that they're trying to radiate towards us.
And that's the thing, right? Because, as we move towards a more digital environment, I think the tactile and the in-person is just going to be even more important. Right? There is value in tactile in in-person meetings. This could literally be a Zoom meeting, right? And we could transcribe it, produce an article, etc. But us being here in the same hall, having this human connection, I think is a microcosm of what a university does, which is bringing people together and coming up with original, interesting content.
So, just mention, I would like the world is dramatically changing, and the labor market and the companies are looking for high-skilled and talented specialists. And it's our responsibility of universities to prepare them and how to do it. That's why I think the research, innovation, and education infrastructure is very important because everything depends on the situation, what you do here. But besides, also we have to work together harder and to help students feel a sense of belonging, purpose, and community. It is quite important. And also application of AI in the governance and in education creates sometimes problems alongside these positive elements. For example, now we are spending much more time for master science thesis to find AI-created dissertations. And sometimes that's why even in our university we have established a new department of ethics of AI. Ethics of AI. For example, recently I got a letter from my student with a complaint, by the way, and it was written in such a way that I was shocked, and I asked this girl come to me, and I wanted to give a job to her because it was done so marvelous, by the way. So I asked her to write on the paper the same complaint, but she couldn't manage even to write 2 sentences. And she recognized that she had used, the AI to write, this letter to the rector. So sometimes, it's very good in governance if you have a good data, but on other way in education, we started to face problem. So what to do? So I think we have to bring business, industry, and universities together to think how to manage with such kind of problems, because now we are on the paper, so we are thinking that AI can do everything, but AI can also create problems in education.
So, as you were
Another point to this interesting case is this girl writing a complaint, right? From one perspective, yes, she did use a tool, but from another perspective, she actually used technology to significantly improve what she was doing when she get to the office. If she will do it by herself, would she get to the office? Unlikely. So I wouldn't look at this just from the perspective whether she can write it by herself. Of course, she should have been able to write it by herself, but from another perspective, it's a successful case of somebody augmenting her own skills to achieve the goal that she was trying to achieve, and she almost got a job role. She should have been prepared, but probably better to meet you. But other than that, there is multiple ways of looking at this scenario, in my opinion. And I think we probably will be discussing that in the future, but generally speaking, how do we assess students? How do we create like those outdated ways, like how much salaries they draw, which, by the way, 4 out of 10 cases is negative ROI based on research, right? So I think that is one more point that we could contribute to the previous question, whether the industry should really think of planning for the coming years.
So if you get to the internet, what should you do? So the analytical thinking is going down. So I mean that if you want to prepare the specialists for future, I'm not against the AI, but if she has spent 1 month to create only one letter, and so we have to think about the people who can make immediate decisions. So we have to bring everything together and to have hybrid.
Just for sure.
Absolutely.
And interesting, you spoke earlier about that curiosity and finding a balance, but ultimately, there's an opportunity here for us to allow students to explore, right, and to create their own experience in the programs. But what is the balance there between, personalized content and creating these platforms where they can explore versus actually leading from industry and in terms of the skills that are needed from the workforce and letting that drive future programs and future learning experiences? Do you have thoughts on that? Not anybody, but yeah.
Actually, I have experience, not just so, because, I'll talk very shortly. So the product that we build in our company is for marketers to do better strategy. And strategy usually leads to a better story. Story would be coupled with a product that will lead to a campaign. And story is very important because it makes the whole marketing campaign relatable, right? So we were actually thinking, should we create a product that just produces the content that you take and use? And that would be 80-90% of all the applications in the marketing space nowadays. Or should we create a product that guides you through the process step by step, let you learn the marketing frameworks, that you actually understand that story is probably a pain point, an angle, and a person. And from story you can get an insight. From inside you can get a couple of marketing campaign propositions. Should we just do it for you, or should we walk you through, educate you, and then ultimately get you not just get the result that you want, but let you be a decision maker, collaborating with this AI agent to actually come up with the marketing content that you're looking for. And we made the decision for the latter. We are building a product that pushes people to that, but guess what? We have a harder time to sell it. It's just so much easier to sell the product nowadays that just does the job for you because people are so busy. And this is obviously the same for students and for professionals that are already working. Professionals are even more busy. So exactly, how do we actually encourage people to be willing to continuously learn whatever stage of life they are? I think this is a big question. But on the company side, corporate side, we kind of have to make a conscious decision to create the systems that encourage people to collaborate with technology rather than being replaced by it, or produce just one more average thing that nobody really cares but make you look like you did a good job or some job. That's the question.
Thank you. So for our last kind of key question, we're obviously here to talk about data, and I wanted to ask, what shifts do you think are needed for universities to truly become data-informed ecosystems 2030? Question, can I start with you?
Yeah, well, one of the areas I think there's a lot of potential would be data and alumni engagement. So a lot of the universities that I work with alumni to figure out what kind of opportunities you can provide to your current students. This includes internship opportunities, mentoring them. Alumni are great peer mentors. If I was the president of a university, the first thing I would do would be, hey Siri, tell me which of my alumni are likely to donate a building back to the university in the next 5 years. That would be interesting, right? And then I would also pull back and see, based on this particular student profile, what kind of alumni are best suited to peer mentor them for the careers which they may not even know that they might be entering into.
Sorry. For ecosystems, I think we have to think about two things. The first one is infrastructure, upgrade of this infrastructure. A second important one is mindset change. Because we have to think also about the data literacy mindset and ethical use of data. By the way, I would like to raise a question. Who is owning the copyright for the AI-created product? This is a very important question. Because anybody can come and to start disputing another copyright, the intellectual property right for this. That's why I think the mindset also is quite important question, and alongside this collaboration, we have to think that collaboration that you mentioned about the juridical aspects of involvement of new technologies in our activities.
And talking about copyrights, there are huge business models coming out of there. So for example, if you look at IBM, they are not selling cloud as AWS or Google would do. What they sell is the model plus the legal framework and the people exactly to protect you against copyright infringement if you start using large language models. So their product is the sense of security and safety for the businesses who decide to use AI on premise instead of just the performance and those other things that are offered, say by Google Cloud or something like this. So in fact, this copyright issue is a huge business as well, and World Stock Organization already tapping on this particular thing when everyone else is just trying to make it bigger, faster, and more advanced in processing and different outputs.
If you start to ask ChatGPT to rechange the already existing text or product several times, so it means that so the author of these products also is affected by this.
So exactly.
wanted to be able to provide some takeaways for the audience, something that people can take back to their institutions. And I wanted to ask, in fact, let's make a statement. Let's do a kind of short answer from each of you. Looking back at the topic of the conversation, an impactful, future-ready university looks like. If we're looking at the university in 2030, what's a key takeaway that you would provide for our audience today?
I think an impactful university of the future, I think, to me, is actually very much like the classical university, right? That it actually is a community of knowledge practitioners, but they are empowered by technology, right? To kind of be explorers of the future together. I think that to me is what the future-ready university should look like.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Farsi, an impactful university of the future looks like.
Universities and some other big organizations quite often take things binary. They don't apply AI or some other technology for a very long time, and then they suddenly start applying it because we need to do it because everyone else is doing it. So I think my key takeaway would be doing experimentation, guided experimentation on deploying the new systems in universities, and maybe even the need of establishing their AI-specific education centers, which Singapore is doing very well. At least we have AICET in NUS and NIE in NTU, which is particularly working on applying AI in education and testing that in real time in their own classrooms, just to apply their learnings back to the systems that they built.
Dr. Babayev?
I think if we are thinking to create an ecosystem, it must have a very special atmosphere. So spiritual, technological, and everything must work together. And but it must be open for international collaboration at the same time. Because if we speak about the system, we are thinking immediately about the closed system, but it must be open also for collaboration. So if we bring here, starting from the campus, ending as the AI application or AI-driven governance, so we have to have a special atmosphere. In that case, students will come and to study and to be prepared for the future activities. So it's a university ecosystem. But everything should have its own proportion. So we cannot just rely on AI only. So we should not forget about the human factor. This is our opinion. It's better to drive everything all together as a hybrid activity in the governance of the university.
Thank you very much. Rusydi, take us home.
Sometime right before COVID, I did an experiment. I brought a group of Singapore Ministry of Education educators to intern in startups during the summer holidays. And one of these educators interned in his ex-student's company. Right, so that was a very interesting, reverse mentoring feeling for him, right? Okay, this is what I've been doing as my career as an educator, and this is how my student is leveraging it. I think that's what we want to keep within the future of the university. I would feel that the university of the future needs to have a mindset change within educators, within students, within alumni, within industry, that knows how to leverage AI, but remembers what it means to be human.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We will leave it there. Thank you to each one of my panelists. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you very much.
If anybody has any questions, please grab them afterwards. And thank you very much.
Everybody, how about another hand for Laura Lechlich and her crew? Thank you.